Hey everyone, Mr. MC here. This is a guide for round 7 of the 2022 Manufacturers Cup Stage 2 taking place at Gran Turismo Seaside with the Group 4 cars. Let's take a quick look at the race details. 14 lap race where it's a rolling start. Fuel is a times 6, so fuel is a main issue in this race, and the tire wear is a times 1. Use both the racing medium and hard tires, otherwise you get a 1-minute penalty after the race ends, and be on the lookout. Refueling speed is at 10 liters per second. That's going to be very important because in this race you will definitely have to refuel. But anyways, going into the lap guide, brake at the 150 meter board, brake as much as you can, slowly ease off of the brakes as you're turning in, and be careful about cheesing the curves like that, because if you do it just wrong, then that can throw your car into a slide or even just spin out. You can do a little lift off of this turn right here, but brake just before the grass on the left starts, so brake hard for a short while. Take advantage of the curb on the inside of the track. You can see I braked just a little too late for that turn. Get on the throttle as soon as you can, bring yourself towards the right, and brake as you're passing the orange barrier that is on the right. Half braking power through this left turn, trying to maintain as much speed as possible, and if you do it right, you'll be able to take the rest of the S's flat out. So there we go, taking the rest of the S's flat out, taking advantage of the entire width of the track. Bring yourself towards the left, brake at the 150 meter board. So brake hard for a short while, so full braking power, slowly easing off of the brakes as you're turning in, so doing a bit of trail braking, and get on the throttle as soon as you can, and get ready for everyone's favorite part of this track, the chicane of death. So this first chicane right here, you can easily take a flat out, but you want to start to turn in as you're passing the Marshall stand that is on the right, and you want to do a little lift off of the throttle to adjust your car's direction and make sure that you don't hit the walls. And if you are a madman, you take that chicane flat out. It is possible to do it, but you have to be precise with your inputs. But anyways, for the final turn, brake before the 100 meter board, so brake a little bit earlier than where I start to brake, as I'm braking a little too late for this turn. Just trying to bring yourself towards the inside of the turn, get the car set up for the exit of the turn, and then fully accelerate. And you can also cheese this turn right here, just like that. But that is all for the lap guide. Let's go ahead and go straight on over towards the race strategies, where, as I mentioned earlier, the racing medium and hard tires are required for this race, so you have to do at least one pit stop. So if you start under racing medium tires, switch over to the racing hard tires at some point in the race. If you start under racing hard tires, switch over to the racing medium tires at some point in the race. If you're starting in the front, start under racing medium tires. If you're starting closer towards the middle or the back of the pack, start under racing hard tires. And one thing that I highly suggest that you do before you enter your first race is to set up a custom race with times 6 fuel, times 1 tire wear, and do some laps to find out how many laps your car can do before you have to go pit. So for example, with me, if I'm revving the heck out of the Viper, I can only do 8 laps before I run out of fuel. If I do just a little bit of short shifting, then it's possible for me to make 9 laps of fuel in the Viper. And I say this because you're basically pitting when you're about to run out of fuel, especially if you're starting on the racing medium tires. And whether you're starting on the racing medium or hard tires, you want to have a pretty good idea about how long your car can last on fuel, because if you don't know and you go into this race blind, then chances are you might end up getting yourself into a bit of trouble, especially if you're starting on the racing hard tires and you don't know how long your car can last on fuel. Okay, so with that out of the way I tested for this race was to test a run where I barely did any sort of fuel saving, and then I tested another run where I did some fuel saving, mainly by short shifting at around 75% of the bar being full. And long story short, for a lot of cars in this race, fuel saving is going to hurt your pace unless if you're under someone's slipstream. So the thing is that at Dragon Trail Seaside, there's a lot of high-speed sections. You have the main straight, you have the S's that lead downhill, you have the chicane of death, and then the short straight that follows after it. Lots of high-speed sections, so you're going to be at full throttle. If you're doing a lot of short shifting to try to make the fuel last, then you risk losing a lot of pace because you're out of the power band, so you're going a bit slower. And in the case of the Dodge Viper, if you're trying to fuel save, and this is just shifting at 75% of the bar being full, your pace goes down the drain, because when I was testing it, my pace, and this was with the fuel saving, my pace was about a second per lap slower. I was going as fast as I was going with my racing hard tires if I was going flat out. So in my case, it is not worth going 1 second per lap slower throughout the entire race just to save 2-3 seconds at the pit stops. It's not worth it. I'm better off just going flat out the entire time. And before I move on, if you're going to the pit stop, make sure you set yourself up to go in between the white lines, because it's going to be really easy to kind of just forget about the white lines because it goes all the way out, and it's going to be really easy to pick up a 3-second penalty by crossing those pit lines. So be especially careful when you're getting ready to pit in. You might want to slow yourself down a little bit to make sure that you don't cross those lines, because getting a 3-second penalty here at Dragon Trail Seaside is basically a death sentence. The other thing is that look for this diamond when you are refueling, because that diamond tells you that this is the amount of fuel that you need to be able to finish the race. Be aware that if you're fuel saving or if you plan to push even more, you will need to refuel past that diamond to make up for the fact that you're pushing a bit more. And with the 10 liters per second refuel rate, I'm going to spend about 7 seconds refueling. So in this case, my total pit loss was about 28 seconds. And of course, stay in between the white lines so you don't pick up another 3-second penalty. It's possible to pick up 6 seconds worth of penalties just by crossing the white line, so please be careful around those lines. And in terms of the racing hard tires, they're not as bad here in terms of pace, because you're losing around 0.7 of a second to 1 second per lap. So interestingly, they're not as slow here compared to the racing medium tires. And you can actually see that one of my racing hard lap times actually poked into the 146s, and this has to do with me barely having any sort of fuel left. So the fuel, or lack of it, will also help you go a little bit faster. And don't forget that this race has a lot of high-speed sections, so slipstream is going to be your best friend here. Make sure you buddy up with someone so you can try to work together, take advantage of the slipstream to try to get away from others or to catch up to others. You can even use the slipstream to try to do a little bit of fuel saving yourself and kind of just hang out under that car's toe. Unless if they're going really slow, then you can easily just pass them like that. But anyways, in this run, this was a 25 minutes and 25 second run, and this was without doing any sort of fuel saving. Okay, so now let's go over towards the run where I was fuel saving, shifting at around 75% of the way in. And at least in the Viper, fuel saving is not the greatest idea because your pace kind of just suffers. In this run, I was going around 1 second per lap slower versus where I was just going flat out. So at least for me, fuel saving in the Viper is not really worth it. The only time where I can really see it being worth it is if I somehow qualify in the front and just hang out under the toe of the car in front of me and they're going fast, and if I'm able to keep up with them like that, then yeah, I could do a little bit of fuel saving. But for the most part, yeah, fuel saving is not going to be worth it in this car. But be aware that there are some cars, I think the BMW M4 is one of them, where they can afford to do a bit of fuel saving without losing too much pace. And of course, if you're going to fuel save, do it under someone's slipstream so they can tow you around and you won't lose as much pace versus fuel saving while you're being completely alone. But anyway, skipping over towards the end of lap 10, yes, I was able to short shift enough to be able to make the fuel last 10 laps, but I'm just losing too much pace to make the fuel save worth it. At least in the Viper, it's not worth fuel saving. I mean, yeah, I will be spending less time refueling at the pit stop, but if I can go much faster throughout the entire race and take another second or two refueling, then I might as well just do that instead of doing all this fuel saving shenanigans. And that is because at the end of this run where I was fuel saving, I got 25 minutes and 33 seconds, so that's about what, 8-ish seconds slower than going flat out. So at least for me, fuel saving is not worth it. The only time I can see myself fuel saving is if I qualify in the front and I can stay in the toe of the cars in front of me. That's where I can see fuel saving being worth it, but if I'm starting in the back, then it's not worth it at all. But anyways, that is going to pretty much be it for this guide. Once again, make sure you have an idea about how long your car can last on fuel, especially if you're going flat out. That way you have an idea about what strategy to do, when to pit, and all that good stuff. And that's all for me, so hopefully this guide helps you out. And if you like this video, you can press a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I do have a memberships program thing that you can check out down below if you want to further support this channel. But this is Mr. MCA. Have a good race, don't hit the chicane to death, and I'll see you in the next video.